Coming up, El Clasico takes centre stage as Barcelona rip Real Madrid to pieces in the world's biggest fixture. Elsewhere, the Premier League. Does anybody want to win the league title? We discuss. And in Italy, the old lady, she's getting out of her chair as Juventus crank up the pressure. All that and more on tonight's Football Hipsters podcast. All right. Hello and welcome to the Football Hipsters podcast. I am your host Chris and I'm joined by three of our regulars this evening. Introducing to you first, I have Mr. John Welsh. Good evening, John.
Evening, Chris.
I'm also joined by Mr. Tom Campton. Evening, Tom.
Evening, sir.
And Mr. Drew Thompson. Evening, Drew.
Hello, guys.
We are back again, as always, this week to talk all things European and a touch of world football, although this week, certainly a European-heavy schedule, because there's not much going on in the rest of the world, other than America. More on that later. Yes, we'll discuss all things football. We'll take your listener questions, as always, and we've got a couple of hipster handshakes to get through as well. But let's not waste any time at all. Usual format, Mighty 90 comes first, so I'm going to pick on someone now. Drew, I'm going to pick on you first.
It's always me.
It's always you. We're going to pick on you and find out how Feyenoord are getting on this weekend. So I have my stopwatch ready, and your Mighty 90 time begins now.
Right. As usual, I'll be covering Feyenoord. They ran out 5-1 winners at the Hoop Stadium against FC20, who are struggling massively this season, who've now lost 5 of their last 6 matches. Not doing too well, sitting in 15th. Fully in control of the match. 64% possession. Pass rate was really nearly 90%. 23 shots, 10 were on frame. So the result was never really in question. It's just going to be a matter of what the scoreline was going to be. Continue to use the usual 4-3-3. The front three, Elia, Michel Kramer, and Dirk Kuyt, they actually played very, very well as a tandem for once. Usually Kramer is the odd one out, but they clicked very well. Elia and Kuyt had an assist apiece. Kramer actually found back of the net after the break on 46 minutes. Man of the match, though, as Chris knows, Simon Gustafsson. Netted twice in the first 30 minutes on 7 and 26 minutes. He now has 3 goals and 4 assists in just 7 league appearances. Karim El Amadi found it back in it on 50 minutes, and Bilal Bassesoglu rammed home the result in stoppage time. Feyenoord have now taken 4 out of the possible 6 in their last 2 outings and sit second, 3 points behind Ajax in first after PSV failed to see off Willem II Tilburg, who are in 16th rather. Next fixtures against Excelsior. We've only lost once in our last 6 matches, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes down. So it's looking good so far.
And you still had 10 seconds to spare, but I'll let you off that.
That's right.
It's fine. I'll let you off. I'll blow the whistle on you early. It's not a problem. Good stuff, Drew. Thank you very much. Tom, I'm going to pick on you next, and let's see how. Let's go full hipster. Off to Austria. Off to Austria we go. So Red Bull Salzburg, your time begins now.
We're back on track. We won. We actually won the first win in the last 3 matches. We recorded our first 3-1 win against 4th place Sturm Graz, and it was built to be a bit of a tough game, especially coming back off the 1-1 draw against Austria Vienna in the derby. But that man again, Jonathan Soriano, scoring for Salzburg again. His first goal, a fine finish, finesse shot into the bottom right-hand corner, and the assist was from that other man, Naby Keita. Big things to come from him in the future. Then on the 77th minute, Sturm Graz equalised through another. Why is it players that always come up against Salzburg have the weirdest names? Lyko Giannis equalised with a header from a corner. Then that man, Naby Keita, got the equaliser. A great finish, which actually was quite fortunate in ways it came off. A great finish for all the fans in the 87th minute, screaming and shouting, finally getting another win. And Soriano really, really got it out of the bag at the 93rd minute, where he actually hit a shot where the keeper should have saved it, but palmed it onto the post and it cannoned back into the net. We now sit second in the league after Austria Vienna dropped points, but still are ahead by 1 point. And we go to play 7th placed Grodig next week on the Saturday. It's a 5:30 kickoff, so early kickoff, and that's going to be me finishing 10 seconds also before. So apologies.
No worries. There's the whistle. It's all good. I've blown the whistle for you early. It's all good. All fine. No problem. Right. I'd rather you be early than late. So it's all good.
That's
Let's.
what she said.
Absolutely. Let's see. Keep it PG for goodness sake. Let's see how Mönchengladbach are getting on. John, over to you, and your time begins now.
Well, everyone else in the Bundesliga can just give up now because it's finally happened. The Messiah has signed. Andre Schubert has finally agreed to be the head coach. He signed a 2-year deal with the team. As for this weekend, the unbeaten streak under Schubert continues. It stretches to 8 games. We won 2-1 over Hanover now. We actually started the game kind of bad because Tony Janski's clearing off the line and Hanover actually starting quite well. But then the game swung back in our favour, and Ibrahim Traore continued his fine form, scoring through Zieler's legs on 34 minutes. Hanover then came out fighting in the second half, hitting the post. Jan Sommer making some great saves. Stindl hitting the woodwork as well for Gladbach. And Subic scored for Hanover to equalise to 1-1. But then Raphael, yet again, finding the winner for Gladbach 6 minutes from time in what was a quite end-to-end game at the end of it. Traore, definitely man of the match, really taking advantage of the injuries to Patrick Herrmann and Andre Hahn. So that is now 6 goals in his last 7 for Raphael as well, really keeping his form up. And then that shows Gladbach now up to 5th in the league on 22 points. They're just 2 points behind Wolfsburg in 3rd. So they're really pushing at the moment, and there's, if they can keep this kind of form up to the winter break, things could look good for them, and maybe back in the Champions League again next season if possible.
And there's your time. So there we go. Good stuff. Okay, super. That just leaves me. So I shall whack the old timer up, and let's get you up to speed with how Lorient got on this weekend. My time begins now. So this weekend, Lorient were at home again at Le Moustoir, 15,340. Witnessed PSG come to town. It's always a big game for Lorient. There was a pre-game tribute to the Parisian victims. The Eiffel Tower flag was set up across the back of the stand. Very moving scenes there. The game got underway. And it was a very unusual scorer, Henry Ongenda, with his first Ligue 1 goal for PSG. He's been at the club for 5 or 6 years now, but he's only a youngster. He's I think he's only 20 years of age, but he got the opening goal in 26 minutes with a kind of a rare start. Blaise Matuidi notched the second from a Zlatan Ibrahimovic cross to make it 2-0. Just 6 minutes later on 32 minutes. So things were not looking great, but Lorient fought back. Benjamin Mukanju headed the goal back from Philippotu's cross, but it was a little bit late, only 8 minutes to go. But he is now Ligue 1's top goal scorer with 10 league goals. They were unlucky not to grab a 2-2. Fully merited a draw in truth. PSG kind of had the game won and sat back. But alas, it couldn't happen. Lorient now sit 9th on 20 points in Ligue 1, and they now face Gazalec Ajaccio away from home in their next game. We'll touch on Gazalec a little bit later on, but they're coming off of 4 straight wins. So Lorient continue to play free-flowing and attacking football, but when PSG come to town, you generally tend to end up with no points, and that's what happened this week. So there we go. That's the end of Lorient. Right then, let's get on to the main parts of the show, and it is the world of football. Okay, so world of football this week. We're going to start. Could we start anywhere else? I don't think so. This week we're going to start in La Liga.
Toca también Rubén Bezo, le llega Di María centra el remate. ¡Golazo! ¡Golazo! De Cristiano Ronaldo.
So La Liga. Tom, over to you. There was a certain game, wasn't there, this week?
Yeah, there was. Sociedad beat Sevilla 2-0. Agarecha, he scored in the 73rd minute, and Xavi Prieto in the 77th minute. A great game, actually, for Sociedad, the new manager coming in and getting a result. Eusebio, that man, not the man, but it is Eusebio, their new manager. In another match in that Liga, we'll go to Espanyol, beat Malaga 2-0. Perez got 2 goals for them, a great assist from Asensio, of all people again. Third game I can remember is Valencia drawing 1-1 with Las Palmas. Alcacer got the goal. Jonathan Vieira equalising in the 57th minute. And then Celta Vigo lost. They are really going downhill now. They lost to Deportivo, who are actually going uphill at the moment, which is nice to see. Lucas Perez and Johnny Castro with an own goal. That's Celta's third loss in 5 matches. Who should go to next? Levante. Levante lost. They won a 3-0 away at Gijon. A result they very, very much needed. New manager Ruby getting 4 points from their loss from a possible 6 now. Dave Verson got both goals. But 2 of the 3, sorry, and Fedal, the centre back, who also assisted one of Dave Verson's goals, also got a goal. Next match we'll go to is Villarreal, drawing 1-1 with Eibar. Eibar still on that roll of getting decent results away and at home. Enric scored for them, and then a very controversial red card from Keiko, already on a yellow. The ball was kicked at him and somehow hit his arm, and the ref decided to give him a second yellow for handball when it was completely accidental. Jaume Costa then equalised in the 85th minute for Villarreal. We'll go to Granada next. Granada won 2-0 against Bilbao. And that man we praised so highly last week, Laporte getting an own goal in the 5th minute, and then the very well-named Success scored in the 59th minute to make it 2-0. Next game is Atletico Madrid winning 1-0 at Real Betis. Koke getting a goal in the 7th minute in a game where Griezmann, of all people, squandered many chances, including a really big miss right at the end where he skied it over the bar. That's the second game in a row Atletico Madrid have grinded out a 1-0 away win, but it shows they are on the up, and consistency is good when you're trying to vie for the title. Tonight's game, Getafe drew 1-1 with Rayo Vallecano. An odd game because the player Yozabed scored an own goal in the 58th minute, and in the 73rd minute he equalised, and that's how the game finished. Now I think that's it, Chris. I'm not entirely sure.
There was one small other game. I think was it in Madrid, maybe. I think it was.
Oh, didn't Barcelona come to town? I think they did.
Go on, tell us about El Clasico.
All the fixtures, the best fixture in Europe, apparently. But yeah, it really did build up to the hype. Barcelona came away with a 4-0 victory. Suarez scored a great goal the outside of his foot into the bottom left-hand corner. Neymar got a finish, which I personally feel Navas could have done a lot better at saving. Iniesta then, probably the best goal of the match. Great. I think it was 26 passes made up the finish, which was a shot into the top right-hand corner, greatly laid off by, I think it was Neymar. Suarez then scored in the 74th minute to make it 4-0, and then the red card from Isco is one of the funniest I've seen. He gets completely taken it round him and he just boots the player. I mean, if you're 4-0 down, you've got to move on to your next fixture. Why are you going around just booting someone and missing the next 3 matches? Ridiculous. Notes from the match that Messi didn't come on until the 3rd goal had gone in. Really does show Barca's power over Real Madrid at the moment. Real Madrid were defensively awful all game. Ronaldo missed a stunning chance, played across him, and Navas made a comfortable save. And it really does show now, without Messi, Barcelona are the real force in football right now. So now we've got that little incident out of the way, we'll look at the table. Barcelona have gone top, 4 points clear of Atletico, who've overtaken Real. Villarreal have overtaken Celta Vigo into 4th, but only on goal difference. Valencia stays 7th. Deportivo are now the informed team in the league, moving up to 8th, down at the bottom. Malaga are very deep in rubbish at the moment, they're sitting bottom, and Levante are getting their second win of the season, move up above them. Las Palmas stay in 18th, and Granada move out of the bottom 3, also with their second win of the season. Sociedad have overtaken Getafe and Gijon, whatever you prefer, and move up to 14th. Fixtures for next week, you'll look out. There's one game I picked out, and that's the inform Eibar against the struggling Real Madrid. Should be a good game to watch.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Tom. Couple of questions then. I want to get the panel's thoughts on a couple of these as well. John, I'll come to you quickly. El Clasico, rather than talking about the game, I want to focus on what this could mean for the future of a certain former Napoli manager. We've seen Florentino Perez today come out and back Rafa Benitez. Do you see that as a bit of a publicity stunt, or do you think that Mr. Benitez might be looking for a new job in a few weeks?
No, I think they'll stick with Rafa, despite what normally, if you get the backing of the board, it's the kiss of death. I don't think he'll see past this season. But the simple fact is there isn't anyone to replace him, really, who Madrid would deem of a high enough level. Ancelotti would be the obvious one, but the talk is that he really wants to manage in the Premier League, and if not, maybe going back to Serie A. And obviously, the only other name is a possible return for Mourinho, although it didn't end very well for him. So I actually think that Benitez will end up keeping his job until the end of the season, but that will be it for him, sadly.
Yes, I'm inclined to agree there. There's a question actually in the question section that involves Real Madrid and their managers, so we will come to that later. Drew, I'll ask you as well. El Clasico, obviously, it's one of the biggest matches in the world, watched by millions and millions of people. Was it sort of a game for you that just cements the fact that Barcelona are probably the favourites for the Champions League and the most informed side in Europe? And just give us a little bit of give us a little bit of your thoughts on their front three.
Well, as we were talking about before taping, they have to be the odds-on favorite for La Liga and Champions League every year for a reason. No, the way they play, everyone just fits the system like seamlessly. Just everything is perfect with the way they operate. No matter who the coach is, they come in, they don't have to switch anything. And I think when you have a system that's efficient, I think that sort of speaks volumes. As for their front three, like you and I were talking about before, for me at least, I'm 31, but for me, this is the best attacking trio I've seen in my lifetime. And I've been watching the sport since age 6, so in 25 years, I don't think I've ever seen a better attacking trio. Just their understanding, the way they move off each other, their ruthlessness in the final third, and they're all as creative as they are deadly with when they're trying to finish off a chance. And I think that's what just puts them above and beyond everybody else. And as we were joking before, if Barca played in the World Cup, do we think Barca would win the World Cup? And we all actually said yes. So I think that sort of brings all our thoughts together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll keep an eye. Tom, I want to take it back down the league a little bit and come back to you before we wrap up Spain. Two clubs I want to pick up on. Talk to me about Espanyol. I noticed their form is decent at the moment, or has turned, shall we say. What do you make of them, and what do you put sort of the recent run down to?
I'm trying to stick away of saying too much about Asensio, but the 19-year-old really has been hitting form for them. He's got 7 assists so far this season, and really their striker, whose name has annoyingly gone from Perez, not the striker, the midfielder Perez. He's scoring 2 goals, and he's scoring goals for fun at the moment. To be fair, he scored in the last week's match, and he's got 4 in 10 now. He's really smashing it for them. Defensively, they've been solid. They haven't conceded in the last 2 matches. They beat Blooming, which is a great name team, in the cup, and that's the last 2 matches they've won. I mean, they lost to Athletic Bilbao, which are a team that were in form back then. They drew at Granada, but it looks like they've got a bit of an upturn in form. In terms of other teams, did you want to talk about Malaga?
I did, yeah. Malaga, I mean, you said they're sitting bottom. I mean, this is a side that pushed Dortmund all the way. Granted, with very, very much different playing staff at the time in the Champions League, but they're a team in free fall. Am I right in saying that they are still, or could still be potentially having to pay out an awful lot of money if they don't ship players? I mean, there's talk that the high-profile players are going to be on the move again. I mean, are they just a team that is just going to fall into the second division now?
I don't want to say they will, because the other teams that are in the bottom, who like Levante and Granada, have been awful. But now that they actually won at the weekend, it's not looking too great. But they're not really a team with money either. I mean, a few years ago they obviously had a big financial boost, and they brought in a lot of players that people heard of when they brought in Roque Santa Cruz and they brought in Van Nistelrooy a few years back as well, before he retired. But now they really are struggling. They've lost their last 4 out of 5. The other game was beating Deportivo, and they're losing, and they're not scoring either. They've scored 2 in the last 5 matches, and they are going to have to go in January and actually have to sign someone. But with their funds, it's going to be a bit of a struggle. For me now, I'm going to have to tip them to be the ones to go down as well.
Yeah, they're struggling. We'll certainly keep an eye on that. Final question from you on all things Spanish. Just going back to the Clásico again, do you think there's major surgery needed by Real Madrid now?
Yes. However, it's going to be very tricky to be done. What we were talking about before the pod, the problem with Real Madrid is that they're so arrogant in their ways that they think they can play a team where they have no defensive midfielders in their team. They think that they can outscore the other team and play it around them and have the attacking prowess and verve really to beat anyone they come up against. But eventually, when you're going to come up against the larger teams like Barcelona and even Atletico Madrid, you're going to need those defensive midfielders to cover your back four. And Barcelona ripped them apart, and they didn't really look like they wanted. The Real Madrid players didn't even look like they wanted to play for Benitez at the moment, which is worrying when you see that sort of thing coming from a team. And when the Perez comes out and backs Benitez, you know that's going to have to be the problem that's going to be rectified, because that's what they're going to stick with the rest of the season. In terms of my thoughts on Benitez, I think he's only staying because there's literally no one else who can take the job at the moment. If there was someone around, like say if it was next year and Joachim Low, because I saw someone tweeted me about it, if he was available, he could have come in and he'd have been a great shout for them, I feel personally. But he's not, because you've got the Euros and they're going to have to stick with Benitez. But it's going to be interesting when they go to play away at Eibar next week, because that's obviously a team in form and a team that do grind out results.
Yeah, what will be really interesting is if a certain Carlo Ancelotti still doesn't have work by the end of the year and the results continue the way they are. That'll be one to watch. Good stuff. Okay, well, as always, anything La Liga, anything you want to ask, Tom is your man. You can drop him a tweet and or just tweet the podcast, and we'll get your questions answered as best we can. So thank you very much, Tom. Right, so let's now take a trip to France.
Le corner. Oh, quel geste! Quel geste! L'égalisation de Zlatan Ibrahimovic. 23e minute. Le 8e but cette saison du géant suédois. Et celui-là, c'est vraiment un but. Christophe à la Zlatan, l'extérieur du pied. Exceptionnel geste et égalisation du Paris Saint-Germain.
Okay, so Liga this week. What's been happening? Well, I can tell you. Lots of games as usual this week. Lots of goals this week again, which again puts pay to the fact that France is boring. I promise you it's not. The fixtures opened up this weekend with a game on Friday night where the excitement of Nice returned, which was great. Should say at the outset of Ligue 1 football this weekend, there were no or very, very limited away fans in all Ligue 1's grounds this week amid the security concerns of the Parisian attack. So very, very strange atmospheres all around Ligue 1 this weekend. But Lyon didn't turn up, I think it's fair to say. Nice very much back in the groove. They won by 3-0, largely dominated a game in which Lyon, as I say, were just very, very poor. In fact, Yanga Mbiwa got a 2 in L'Equipe out of 10. First time that's been done in 10 years, apparently. So, yeah. That didn't go down well. He actually scored an own goal. Valérie Germain scored a beautifully created and crafted goal on 20 minutes to put Nice in front. And a late third from Cosiello, who's a player I really like, securing the points for Nice. Notable in that game as well, Ben Arfa continuing his great form, as was Jeremy Pied, and indeed Nemphalas Mendy, who's a player who's starting to draw the attention of some of Europe's finest. So he's definitely a player to watch. Moving on to Montpellier, they got a 3-1 win against Rennes. 3 wins from the last 5 for Montpellier, so they're turning things around. They've actually won 4 from the last 5 games at home, so they're starting to make that a fortress. A player I really like, who's, don't get me wrong, he's got a lot to learn, but young lad from Chad, in the African continent. He's a player called Ninga, who's playing on the right hand side for Montpellier. He was very decent. He's got 1 goal, 1 assist this season. Certainly one to keep an eye out for. But goals from Yatabare, Kamara, and Darbo. More on him later on. Got the points for Montpellier. As for Rams, they are in freefall. Real trouble for them. They're slipping down the table fast. 5 straight defeats. They're down in 15th now. Cannot win home or away seemingly at the moment. Also to highlight, Gazlek Ajaccio, fast becoming the hipster team of this podcast. They won again, and they came from behind to win away at Bastia, who are also really in trouble. Gazlek have won four straight wins for them now. Their coach Thierry Loret is just got the motoring. I don't know what it is that's triggered it, but 4 straight wins, you can't argue against it. And certainly coming from behind as well shows some real resolve. And for a team that were seemingly doomed at the bottom of Liga just 4 weeks ago, they're 4 straight wins. They're up to 15 points. They're now sitting pretty in 16th, ahead of the likes of Lille and Toulouse. So they're motoring, and it's good to see. I think it's fair to say. Bastia, on the other hand, lost 9 of the last 12 games in Liga, which is, that certainly is free fall. Moving on to Sunday's games, Rennes, drew with Bordeaux 2-2. Quite an entertaining game, actually. One notable stat from this game. Left back Diego Contento, who signed from Bayern Munich a couple of seasons ago, he is the first German to score in Liga since Oliver Bierhoff for Monaco against Lille in 2001. 14 years. So that's quite a long distance for a German to score a goal. And it was a very, very good goal as well. Quick feet cutting inside and drawing Bordeaux level late on. Very entertaining game. Very back and forth that. Well worth a look. And finally on Sunday night, St Etienne lost at home to Marseille. A lot of pressure on Marseille coach Michel. A lot of people are starting to wonder if he just looks nice on the touchline and doesn't really have a clue tactically. But he certainly got the right result here. The Belgian striker Michy Batshuayi, having scored on his Belgian debut during the international break, he's now got 5 in his last 8 games. He's certainly starting to turn the heads of teams in Europe, particularly Atletico Madrid, who are eyeing him up a potential €35 million bid, which is, of course, his buyout clause. But Marseille, without him, they will really will struggle. They're up to 14th. It's hardly high praise, but they have turned the ship around a little bit. 3 wins from the last 5, so they're getting there. Other results, Caen and Angers in the battle of the two unpredictable sides in 3rd and 5th respectively. They drew 0-0 on Sunday. Caen had a player sent off, Yahia, in 32 minutes, so they had to kind of cling on to that result. Troyes, the bottom side, they at least got a goal and they at least got a point. But they were playing Lille, so it's not a massive thing to write home about. More about Lille in a second. Toulouse, they lost again. Toulouse, great pun. They lost to Guingamp 2-0 away from home. Monaco won 1-0 against Nantes. Mario Pasalic with another goal there. We mentioned the Lorient PSG game, which leads nicely on to where the table stands now. PSG, 38 points. Their nearest rivals sit on 25 points, which is Lyon in second. I think it's fair to say PSG are probably going to win this league. We've said it each week. They've won 12 of their 14 games, so they've got a goal difference of plus 26. So I think the title is probably going to stay in Paris. Elsewhere, Cannes, Nice and Angers make up the top 5. Monaco up to 6th now. St Etienne falling to 7th. Nantes in 11th and Marseille in 12th. So starting to the team's starting to rise to the top that probably should be. As far as the bottom 3 though, Troyes, I think they're doomed. 5 points from 14 games. They sit bottom. Toulouse, my tip for relegation, they've only got 9 points, not doing much better, second bottom. And Bastia are just above the relegation zone in 18th. Lille, who we will just finish up with, they're now 17th. They've changed managers. Hervé Renard lost his job in the week. He's been replaced by a fairly unfashionable coach, Frédéric Antonetti, who sort of followers of Liga might remember from when he managed Rennes between 2009 and 13. Prior to that, he's had spells at Nice, St Etienne and Bastia. But he was certainly a left field appointment. I think the wider scope of things was that Christian Gourcuff, the former Lorient manager, was likely to come in. But he has decided to stay with I think it's Algeria that he's managing at the moment, the national side. So he's staying put. Antonetti is the man. Very, very odd appointment, in my opinion. We shall see how that goes. As far as games coming up this weekend, highlights probably PSG against Troyes. If you want to see goals, that's probably a game to tune in. As we said, Troyes really struggling. I think PSG might spank them. So I suppose a lot depends on their midweek Champions League endeavours, but that's worth a watch if you fancy goals. And the Sunday game, Olympique Marseille or OM, whichever you prefer, at home to Monaco. That'll either be very entertaining or highly terrible. It's just one way or the other. And the only other one to pick out, Lorient's game away at Gazélec Ajaccio. That could be quite entertaining. As we mentioned, Gazélec really on good form, and Lorient generally tend to play on the counter-attack away from home. So that should be worth a watch. So that's pretty much it from Liga, but we have a couple of questions. Drew, I think you've got a question for me.
I do. So, I mean, as you just mentioned, PSG is more than likely going to run away with it. Who do you, if you had to go on record now, I know there's 24 matches left, but who do you realistically think will finish second and third? And do you think Nice will be one of them?
It's an excellent question. The Champions League race is very much the thing to watch in Liga this season. I think that's going to be the key thing. There's 2 spots up for grabs. Second and then third will have to qualify. Currently, as we said, PSG, qualified already. Lyon sits second and a kind of prime for that spot. But Caen in third. Are they going to stay there? Are Angers going to maintain? If I had to put money on it, no. The interesting one, as you mentioned, there is Nice. Can they continue this form? Can they continue pushing up the table? I think yes. I think they can. Will they though? It's very hard to say. What I will say is I don't see Marseille making up the ground, so I don't think they're going to qualify. I think if I had to put money on it, I think Lyon will have enough to finish second. But my vote for third, just pipping Nice, I think Monaco will be the team that will get into the top three. That they've just started to get back to their sort of what they were last year. Good defensively, they've got enough flair to score enough goals to win games. They're never going to be particularly entertaining, but I do think they will get goals.
So you think Nice's goals are going to dry up because they only have 3 fewer goals than PSG at the moment?
They do, but they also like conceding goals, and I just wonder. I really hope they do because they're very entertaining. They do play a good brand of football, and they've got some good exciting players to watch. But again, much like Leicester, we'll touch on in the Premier League later on. I just think they're going to run out of steam, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Tom, you have a question as well.
Yeah, obviously Marseille had an absolutely awful start to the season. I just wanted to know your thoughts on them, how they might progress for the rest of the season.
Marseille, they're an enigma. I mean, in 12th position, I mean, if you look at it, they've got 18 points at the moment. So that means they've got to make up at least 8 points to get anywhere near second. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you've got other teams playing around them, it suddenly starts to look quite a big step to make. The one thing I would say is if you look at their next sort of line of fixtures, there are some winnable games. Now they they play at home to Monaco on Sunday, which is, that's probably a bit of a tough one. But then after that, away at Rennes, never easy, but you'd fancy them. And then they're home to Montpellier and Gazélec before going away to Bordeaux the following week, and then they're home to Guingamp. So they've got winnable fixtures. The trouble with Marseille is they're just so bipolar. You just never know what's going to turn up. They have got one of the most informed players in Liga at the moment in Lassana Diarra, which who'd have thought you'd be saying that a few months ago, but he is bang in form. And of course, Michy Batshuayi. To answer your question directly, though, that's what it's going to hinge on. 14 starts, 9 goals says it all. They aren't getting goals anywhere else in the team, and that's the concern. If Batshuayi leaves, or if they are to get a big bid, as you know, from Atletico in January, and if they lose him, they really are in trouble. They've only got 2 other forwards, both of which have not started a single game all season. So talk about being dependent on one player.
Yeah.
That's going to be the worry. So where do I see them at the end of the season? If I had to put money on it right now, I see them 5th. That's where I think they'll end up. But who knows? I could be wrong. We shall have to keep an eye on that one. So that pretty much draws a line under France. So where should we go next? Let's see how Italy's doing as we go to Serie A. Okay, so John, let's get your thoughts on Serie A this weekend. What's been happening?
Well, because I'm selfish and I run Serie A, I can start where I want, so I'm going to start at the San Siro, because Inter are top of the league. I'm not an Inter Milan fan, you can't tell at all. We got a nice 4-0 win over Frosinone, and it is only the second time this season we've scored more than 1 goal. We've been really entertaining. But we got 4 goals, one from Biabiani, Icardi, Murillo and Brozovic. It's Biabiani's first goal for Inter, which is actually quite nice because he was out injured for a year, and he might have actually had to have retired due to a heart arrhythmia. But he's come back and he's looked very good. He was superb on a day. Adam Ljajic as well. We changed the system slightly. Went to a 4-2-3-1. Ljajic was great in the game, playing from the left. Got 2 assists. Jovetic as well. Lovely little back heel for Murillo's goal. Arrigo Sacchi made a nice comment about Inter as well. Of course, ex-Milan legend coach. Inter Milan play an ancient style only an Italian could love. Which is certainly very true. But it was a nice 4-0 win for us. The real big game of the weekend was Juventus-Milan. I've dubbed it the Gigi Derby for Gigi Buffon and Gigi Donnarumma, 2 goalkeepers at different points of their career. Buffon made his debut 20 years ago last week in Serie A, and that was 4 years before Gigi Donnarumma, who's in goal for AC Milan, obviously was even born. So really impressive stat, but it was the younger man who had a lot of work to do, with Juventus finishing 1-0 winners in the game. It was all Juve. The deadlock was finally broken after Donnarumma made some really great saves in the game. It was broken from a lovely little volley from Dybala, great flick from Pogba onto a run from Alexandro, crossed it across, Dybala chested down and then volleyed in. I think Buffon only had to make one save in the game really, and that was right at the end. But notable performance for Donnarumma, and a nice little hug and chat after at the end of the game between the two keepers of different age. Another great game. There were so many this weekend in Serie A, so it's hard really to get through them all. Genoa 2 and the Nero Verdi. If you haven't heard the song, look it up. Sassuolo song. Genoa beating Sassuolo 2-1. Great game. Berardi wasted a few early opportunities, but then there was a really bizarre incident. Ansaldi for Genoa decided to trip Berardi, who then completely lost his mind, decided to kick Ansaldi in the private part, shall we say, only for Perotti to then run over, start reprimanding Berardi, and the referee to send both of them off. So yeah, quite a bit of drama in that. Genoa then took the lead through Thomas Rincon, a lovely left foot curler, really, really good finish. So it looked like it was all over. Then all of a sudden, 94th minute, Acerbi steps up, scores. Sassuolo think, yep, great, we've got a point. 95th minute, the old curse of the X-strikes, ex-Sassuolo striker Pavolotti scores at the back post to snatch the points back for Genoa. Really exciting game. But yeah, apologies for my terrible singing, but you really have got to look up that song. It's very catchy. In other news around from the league, Torino finally ended their 6 games without a win by beating Atalanta 1-0. That is Atalanta's first defeat at home this season. Carpi sadly lost again, losing 2-1 at home to Chievo. They had a decent fight back, but 2 early goals from Chievo finished them off. Vincenzo Montella's debut, as we talked about a while ago, he is now the Samp manager. Unfortunately didn't get off to the best start, losing away to Udinese 1-0. And Napoli won yet again, winning 2-0 away to Verona. No guesses for who scored the goals. That old Gonzalo Higuain Insigne double yet again. There was a couple of draws as well. Lazio drawing 1-1 with Palermo, their form going downhill, and Fiorentina also getting a 2-2 draw with Empoli. Kalinic coming on in the Tuscan derby and scoring 2 goals in 6 minutes from the bench. Really good. The last game I wanted to talk about was Bologna-Roma. It was amazing that it went ahead in the first place because the pitch was so waterlogged. It was a 4-goal thriller, 2-2. Some very strange decisions throughout the game. Meunier had a goal wrongly disallowed for offside, which should have counted for Bologna, but Bologna actually did end up taking the lead. Adam Messina, young fullback of Moroccan, I think he was Moroccan born, but actually made his debut for the under-21s for Italy last week, opened up the scoring. Then another strange decision, the Bologna goalkeeper slid out of his box, but the pitch was so wet, he actually ended up sliding straight out the box and handling the ball. Roma screaming for a red card, but he only got a yellow. Pjanic took the free kick. Everyone expected it to go flying in. Unfortunately, conditions didn't help him, but he did score from the penalty spot after a penalty was given correctly for handball. Dzeko then scored to take the lead for a second penalty, which I still can't work out whether it should have been given or not. Again, the referee not having the greatest game ever, but Bologna went on to equalise and it finished 2-2. Also notable performance for, and I apologise straight away because I'm not sure which way around it's supposed to be. It's either Sadiq Umar or Umar Sadiq. I can't see him because every single website I've looked at and every person I've spoken to says it a different way. But he made his debut for Roma. He's just 18 years old. He scored 13 in 8 for the youth setup, so he got a little promotion to the team. Other news from around Italy, Lazio, because they've been doing so bad, President Lotito has allegedly placed the players in ritiro, which is, for those of you who don't know, basically means that in Italy they make the players stay at the training ground until the next game, which is Thursday's game against the Dnipro in the Europa League. Napoli are now unbeaten in 16 games, so they are actually the most informed team across all of Europe's top 5 leagues. It's not Bayern Munich, believe it or not. Verona are still winless, sadly, but there is some good news for them as Luca Toni made his return, coming on as a sub, so hopefully he can get some goals for them. And some AC Milan news. Mr. B, who I'm sure some people may have heard of as the Thai property tycoon, who was looking to buy out a section of Milan, 48% of the club. has asked for an extension on securing the funding. The main reason this is quite interesting is because the extension means that by the time whether he has the money or not, it opens the door for other investors to come in to possibly take that 48%. So it could be a bit of a bidding war there. What all that means is we look at the table. As I said, Inter are now top on 30 points, but still so tight. Napoli and Fiorentina both on 28, Roma on 27. The Nerazzurri Sassuolo on 22. Juventus with a win move up to 6th now, actually jumping above Milan. So they are slowly starting to close the gap. Still 9 points at the top though. Down the bottom, Carpi and Verona. Oh, just terrible. Verona aren't actually bottom despite not having a win, but they are joint on points. Frosinone on 11 and Bologna on 13. So still a little bit of hope for them down there. Fixtures to look out for next week. There's a great game Saturday, Milan versus Samp, but the big one is actually Monday night. Which I think if you're in the UK, I think it might be on BT Sport. It's Napoli at home to Inter, so top of the table clash there.
Woof indeed. That is going to be quite the game. A couple of quick questions. I know a couple of the guys have got one for you as well, but I want to ask you about one specific question here. The top four, there's only 2 losses in the last 20 fixtures between the top 4 if you look at all their results, which is quite a title race. But I want to pick on the team in 6th. You mentioned Juventus, the old lady. 4 wins out of 5. They're on the charge. They do you think they're within this title mix? I know they're 6 points off, but they seem to be getting something right all of a sudden, don't they?
Yeah, they're definitely in the title mix. Every single team, manager, club, they're all talking up Juve. They're still seen as the big threat. They're doing the sort of pantomime kind of they're behind you sort of thing is going on in Italy at the moment. No one is writing them off. They're 9 points off top at the moment, but Juventus, they just know how to win games. I mean, they beat a Milan team that's form has been up and down throughout the season, although they have been playing better, but they did it and they still didn't have Khedira, they didn't have Robert Pereira, Bonucci only came on in the second half, so they did it with some big players out. They're starting to get the best out of Dybala. I mean, even Hernandez didn't actually have his best game for Juve, and he actually got booed by a few of the Juve fans. His performance wasn't that great, but they're starting to get the best out of those key players and signings. They seem to be settling in now. So I definitely wouldn't write them off. They'd have to go on a run of losses, but that's 3 wins back to back now. So expect Juve to start pushing up the league definitely. But it's just so exciting this season in Serie A, just because that little edge that the other teams have got above them makes it more of a race than usual.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've enjoyed watching. I watched quite a lot this weekend. It was good to see. Tom, I want to ask you about a former Real Madrid striker. John touched on him there, Gonzalo Higuain, banging in goals. You know, I think he divides opinion to a lot of people. Some people think he's a bit of a flat track bully, and others think he is a truly great goal scorer or a scorer of great goals, whichever way you look at it. What's your thoughts on a former Real Madrid man, and do you think his goals could potentially fire Napoli to either a title or indeed a Europa League this year?
I think this season is genuinely the real deal. I think he's what he was promised as when he came in for the Napoli fans. I mean, he's got 10 goals in 13 matches, and it's form that's been better than the times that he's been there previously. He got 18 the season before that and 17 the season before that, and he's already got 10. So you can see the type of form that is improved in him. It's whether he can stay fit, because you've got to look at it and say if he gets injured, that could be Napoli dead, really. I mean, you got to look at who else they got, but he is doing really well for them. And you talk about when he was at Real Madrid, and he was really known as the more of the clinical player for Real Madrid. He got 107 goals and 190 matches for Real Madrid, and that's now actually starting to show prevalence at Napoli. And I hope he can stay fit, because I'm a big fan of the Napoli side. I like Insigne and a lot of the other players, and I hope that they, even though John won't like it, I hope that they could possibly win the league.
I don't like it either as an Inter fan, but hey. Drew, before we leave Italy, you have a question for John, I believe.
I do. So Inter, top of the table, they've only lost once. Best defensive record in the league, but they lack goals. So, John, what for you do you feel has to change for them to score more? Because surely averaging just a shade over a goal a match is not going to win them the Scudetto. So what do you think has to change?
Well, I mean, it's like the Arrigo Sacchi comments were spot on. They are, unfortunately, as much as I love Inter, they are a team only an Italian could love the way they're playing at the moment, because they've got a really powerful midfield but no real creator. Perisic has come in. He's done okay. The problem is he's good, as you will know, he's good delivering from wide, obviously, when you watched him in the Bundesliga, but they don't have anyone to play on the right-hand side to really balance that out. Adam Ljajic has done very well when he's played, and I'd like to see more of him. And Jovetic can be that creative force. But I would expect them to maybe go and try and buy someone in January. Because obviously they lost Hernandez and they lost Kovacic. And I actually think Kovacic is actually a much bigger loss than they thought, because although it's always nice to have that sort of number 10 who can be creative and dart into little spaces, and Hernandez sort of played that, the deeper lying midfielder who can spray the ball about and spot the gaps is what they're missing, which is what Kovacic could have really done in this team. Because they've got a great striker in Icardi. They just need someone to put the ball on a plate for him. Because even him himself, he said, "I've only got 4 goals this year, but how many times has someone crossed the ball to me?" He said, "Probably 5." So he's obviously not happy either. But as long as they're winning games and they're keeping clean sheets, then they've got a really good chance.
I think Richard Hughes summed it up very well in the commentary last night when he said that this Inter side have definitely got room for a creative midfielder, because he was talking about Kondogbia and Gary Medel basically just being destroyers. Sorry, Felipe Melo just being destroyers.
Oh yeah, that
Not really
midfield is terrifying. If you had to try and run through it, you've got Medel, Melo, Kondogbia, Freddie Guarin. They're all, other than Medel, obviously in size wise, they're all big units who can really destroy and power through and stuff and do lots of running for you and simple passes, but they're not going to pick that precision little pass to feed in a player who Icardi just needs that window, just needs that shot at goal, and he'll score for you. He's proved that before, so they are missing someone of Hernandez or Kovacic's sort of style and class on the ball.
We'll leave Italy with this thought. Imagine Marouane Pjanic in that Inter midfield.
Don't tease me.
I know, I'm sorry. Right, okay, let's go German. Let's see what's going on. So we go to the Bundesliga.
Mertesacker! Nachschuss von Müller! Aus dem Stegreif das 1:0 für Deutschland.
Okay, so Drew, what's been going on in the land of the Germans this week?
I'd like to get the worst out of the way to begin, so I can stop thinking about it. Dortmund fall to Ronald McDonald's footballing institution. They lost 3-1 to Hamburger. They probably should have won. I know, Chris, you and I debated this a lot over the weekend, but if you look at the numbers, I feel Dortmund were incredibly wasteful. An own goal doesn't help. They hit the bar as well. So losing 3-1 was really, really hard done. Pierre-Michel Lasogga got a penalty to open the scoring. Mats Hummels actually scored an own goal, which didn't really help matters. Luis Holpe actually also found net, which I know all of us will hate for other reasons that we won't mention. But I feel a little bit hard done. I'm happy that Aubameyang got another goal. He's top of the table charts with that. But this is what we brought about earlier. Results like this are why Dortmund won't be able to catch Bayern, because Bayern can have an off day and still win 2-3-0. Dortmund have an off day and they're probably going to lose. And I think that's the difference right there. So it's tough now. They're 8 points back, so we'll see how that goes. Moving on, Wolfsburg trounced Werder Bremen 6-0 at home. Goals from 4 different players in this one, including Alejandro Galvez own goal. Max Kusa got brace. Vierinha, Joshua Gilavogi, and Bas Dost also scored. Andre Schürrle actually had a pair of assists coming off the bench, and I think maybe it's a 20, 30-minute cameo of his. Stuttgart's woes continue. They lost 4-0 at home to Augsburg, who aren't exactly playing well either. Alexander Eswein, Jan Ingvar, Carsten Bracker, and Jacho Ku found the goals, and then Timo Baumgartel thought it prudent to gift an own goal as well. Bayer Leverkusen picked up 3 points. They were at Eintracht Frankfurt. Javier Hernandez continues his hot form. He had a first half brace. Slobodan Medojevic cut the lead in half, but then Hakan Calhanoglu restored the 2-goal cushion on the 72nd minute, and we've talked about him a lot on the pod the last couple of weeks, and some people have had questions, and he had a goal and an assist this match, and this is one of the performances that you'd expect to see more from him. He was actually very effective. For me, he was the man of the match there for sure. But then, the next match he can completely go missing, and then, So for him, he needs his consistency. If he can play like this for the vast majority of the match, I think Leverkusen will be just fine because he's definitely a key cog. Cologne and Mainz put out to a 0-0 draw, and that's all there is from that. The Bayern train keeps rolling. They traveled to Gelsenkirchen. They won 3-1 at the Veltins Arena. But Bayern were not at their best, and like I mentioned before, that there were moments where, I mean, they had a wealth of chances that they just did not put away. It could have been a different scoreline, or they could have even spurned all their chances. But Leon Goretzka had an own goal to open the scoring in 10 minutes. Max Meyer, who I know John's a fan of, he equalized 8 minutes later. But despite the dominance, Bayern could not find the second until the 69th minute, which was found through Harvey Martinez, rather. And then Thomas Muller made it 3-1 in stoppage time. And it's interesting, worth noting that David Alaba got taken off in the 82nd minute, and he's a doubt for Champions League. So that's going to be difficult for them, just because the golfing class between Alaba and Rafinha on that left back role is huge, in my opinion. I know Tom will agree with that. So it'll be interesting to see how they go from there moving forward, if the injury does keep him out for any sort of extended period of time. Eugen Polanski scored an own goal. And that's all the Hertha needed. They ran out 1-0 winners at home against Hoffenheim. It's actually worth noting that not only were Hertha outpossessed and outpassed, they actually only managed a single shot all match, but they still got all 3 points. And when you're in a role that they're playing right now, when they're chasing Champions League, 3 points is all they're really going to care about. So I guess that's not much to really poke for that from moving forward. Ingolstadt got all 3 points. They beat newly promoted Darmstadt 3-1. The visitors actually opened the scoring through Aitak Sulu. Aitak Sulu. But Robert Bayer equalized, and then Moritz Hartmann got a brace in the second half. So Ralph Hasenhutl's men keep in the hunt for a top half finish, surprisingly enough. That'll round out the matches. But the top 7 right now, as we said, Bayern are top on 37 points. Dortmund sitting second on 29, 8 points back. Wolfsburg in third on 24. Hertha fourth on 23. And Gladbach fifth on 22, as John mentioned earlier. And Leverkusen and Schalke they're tied on 20 for 6th and 7th respectively. But it's worth noting that Ingolstadt sit in 8th, and they're just a point back of 6th and 3 back of 5th. And real quick, also something that brought to John's attention, Gladbach are the informed side in the Bundesliga apart from Bayern. They've also only scored 1 less goal than Bayern in the last 6 matches. So they're in some serious form right now. And as we spoke about earlier in the pod series, that they're going to be right up there for a Champions League spot this season. So it's good news for John for sure. Back to the table, the bottom 3, it's Stuttgart on 10 points, Augsburg on 9, Hoffenheim dead last now on 8th. Their last and the only one of the season came back against Augsburg back on the 26th of September. So for a team that had some talented players the last couple of years, they're some serious trouble. Top of the goals charts, Aubameyang on 15, Lewandowski on 14, Muller with 12, Bastos, Marco Reus, Solomon Kalou, and Yunus Mali all have 7. Douglas Costa he now leads the league in assists with 6. With 7. Raphael on 6. Mkhitaryan and Kagawa both have 5, and Matthias Ginter, who did not play well against Hamburg, he has on 4. Fixtures to look out for next weekend. Bayern actually hosts Hertha, so that's a huge test for them to see if they can even get a result in Bavaria. I'll be shocked if they do. Leverkusen hosts Schalke, which is another kind of a tasty fixture because Leverkusen is sitting in 6th. Schalke is also in 6th. They're both tied there. Leverkusen has a better goal difference, so that's a huge match, which has some interest from Ingolstadt because Ingolstadt traveled to Hanover, and if they were to win and any points were dropped by either Leverkusen or Schalke, means that Ingolstadt could climb to 7th or even 6th. So that's that.
Good stuff. Thank you, as always. I've got a question for you, and the other 2 chaps have got one as well. Just briefly, yesterday, Hertha Berlin got the win over Hoffenheim in the snow. Look up the pictures of that. That was highly entertaining. It's Hoffenheim I want to touch on with you, really. Obviously, the managerial merry-go-round with what's been happening with them recently and all change. It doesn't seem to me like a lot has changed. Do you think that we made a lot of this 28-year-old coach is going to come in at the end of the season. But as things stand, they've got Hoob Stevens in charge, and he's supposed to be in there as almost a firefighter just to keep them in the league. But they look poor to me. Kevin Volland as well. It looks like a player who's struggling for form. Is he key to them getting out of this, or do they need to bring in players in January? They've got a lot of money, haven't they?
The thing is, like, they have players of quality. It's for me, I feel like it's a continuity issue. Like you said, the managerial merry-go-round is not going to help. But when you lift off some of the players that they have, Pierre Schwegler is a Switzerland international. He's actually quite a good holding midfielder. Kevin Volland, he's not in form, but he does have 5 goals in 12 appearances, so he's able to score. Eugen Polanski usually is doing well. They have Eduardo Vargas, who didn't do well at QPR, but he's a decent player. He's shown well in the World Cup 2 summers ago. Oliver Baumann's a pretty solid keeper. Nicolas Sula at center back is a very good young center back. Jeremy Toljan, so Sebastian Ruddy, Fabian Schär, players like that. You would think that they'd be part of a side that aren't sitting dead last in the table. So for me, I don't think it's a quality issue for me. I do, however, think they do lack some creativity. When you look at the numbers, they've only allowed 20 goals, which isn't bad, but there are teams who have allowed more than that. In fact, there's quite a few teams that have allowed more than that for me, but they've only scored 12, which is, if correct me if I'm wrong, they have the second worst offense in the Bundesliga, only to Ingolstadt, who sit in 8th because they've only allowed 10. So if Hoffenheim aren't going to stop leaking goals in the way they are, then they need to score goals. And that's something they're not doing. And like you said, Kevin Volland, it will be key for that. He's getting goals, but for me, he's kind of the only goal threat. Jonathan Schmid is their second leading goal scorer with 3. So for me, it's Volland or nothing for them. And if they're going to sign anybody, it should probably be an attacking player, maybe someone who can be a little more creative, but they definitely need another goal scorer.
Yeah, well said. John, you got a question for one of the other teams that Drew mentioned there.
Yeah, it's just about Schalke. They've got a very young team, and I look at their position in the league. They're in 7th at the moment. But when I look at Leverkusen, Gladbach, maybe not Hertha, because I think they're a little bit of an anomaly at the moment. I can't even say the word. You know what I mean? Dortmund and Wolfsburg. I look at those teams and I think, I can see the quality throughout the side and there's some depth in it. When I look at Schalke, I think they've got really exciting young players, but are they going to be able to sustain it throughout the season?
I really don't think so. Also, I think losing Julian Draxler actually hurt them more than people want to discuss. For me, other than Leroy Sané, I think he was really their creative force in the final third. They did bring in Johannes Geis, who all you guys know I'm really high on, and you guys have praise for him as well. He's creative from a deeper sense, but other than Sané, they're really lacking that creativity, like that penetrative in the box creativity. Max Meyer's got a long way to go, so I know, John, you're high on him. He's going to come good, but he's just not there yet from a consistency standpoint. So I don't know. I mean, for me right now, I would not put them finishing in Champions League. For me, I think it's going to be Bayern, Dortmund, Wolfsburg, and Gladbach. I think that Bayer Leverkusen are going to end up finishing 5th. So I think Schalke actually will have to dogfight Hertha for 6th. If Hertha keep being consistent enough, they can get results. And Schalke's issue is that they're not consistent enough. They've only won 1 out of their last 6. And for a team that does have quality, that's not nearly good enough. So they're not getting enough from their players. So for me, I don't think it's sustainable. I think they're going to struggle this year for sure.
Good stuff. Tom, you've got a question as well on a team that is currently struggling in the Bundesliga for Drew.
Yeah, it's on Augsburg. I mean, we say struggling, and it's weird you say struggling after they come away with a 4-0 away win. The question basically is that more down to an awful performance from Stuttgart, or is this actually a turning point for Augsburg, especially considering now that the managerial status of the Gladbach manager is set in stone, that Augsburg man isn't really going anywhere?
Right. Well, I mean, Weinzer did very, very well last year. Getting them into the position where they finished 5th, which no one saw coming. But the problem with Augsburg is they couldn't build on that. They lost Fakman Baba to Chelsea, and last year many thought he was almost on par with someone like a Ricardo Rodriguez. So that didn't help. They couldn't really strengthen too much to really sort of sustain, because you have to expect like someone like a Dortmund and Schalke, who they both struggled last year, but they would rebound. But I didn't expect Augsburg to play this poorly. As for the performance, I put it down to Stuttgart being just downright awful. They had the worst defensive record coming into that match, and now they're solidified as the worst defensive team in the league. So I think Augsburg just, was one of those matches where they actually took their chances and capitalized on a team that just cannot defend right now. I don't think it's a turning point. However, I think they're going to struggle to, kind of charge up the table. They may avoid relegation. They may get into that, I guess that 16th spot where they have that playoff. But, there are other teams who are in a bad way right now as well. Darmstadt is falling off. Bremen are very hot and cold. Hanover aren't playing well right now either. So they have a chance to escape relegation, but I don't think that they're going to there's not going to be much of a rescue act to get into a top half finish. So I don't think it's a turning point at the moment.
Good stuff. Stay tuned as always. Again, if there's anything you got question wise for anything Bundesliga, give Drew a shout, and I think Drew's also going to keep us up to date with what's going on in the second division in a short while as well. So good stuff. Thank you as always, Drew. Just the one league left to go, so let's bring it full circle as we go to the Premier League.
Manchester City are still alive here. Balotelli, Aguero.
Okay, so Premier League this weekend wasn't exactly a sterling weekend, but we did get, I think it was 31 goals in total. So let's see where things stand. Well, let's start with the opening game of the weekend, which was Watford's home trip. Or home game, I should say, with Manchester United. Manchester United scoring their first injury time winner since Alex Ferguson left, apparently. That's a bit of a random stat. But Memphis Depay opening the scoring, a late equaliser from Troy Deeney's penalty. But then the same player, Troy Deeney, scoring an own goal from Bastian Schweinsteiger's clip back across the box after a late Sub Pereira had seen his shot saved. So United getting out the back door with the points, and they're not exactly impressing anyone, but they're still winning games, and that is key. So they're up to second in the table. West Brom dispatching with Arsenal's run, if you will. A 2-1 win at the Hawthorns. Arsenal actually took the lead with Olivier Giroud scoring with a header, but the goals turned the game on its head. James Morrison scoring from a free kick knockdown, and Mikel Arteta's own goal 5 minutes before the break put pay to the Gunners. So that's a defeat for them. More importantly, though, Manchester City getting absolutely walloped at home by very much improving Liverpool side. Jurgen Klopp seems to be working some sort of magic. 4-1 victory. Manchester City certainly were terrible, but Liverpool were very, very good on the day. Goals from Coutinho and Firmino, as well as Skirtle, and an own goal from Mangala, seeing off Man City, whose sole response was a Sergio Aguero goal. Elsewhere in the league, Chelsea, they did manage to get a win. But they do remain in 15th place, which again still sounds absolutely phenomenal, really, when you think about it. As champions last year, they're still down in 15th, but a Diego Costa goal getting them the points against Norwich at home. Good away win for Stoke City away at Southampton. Bojan with the winner there, and a very good win for Jamie Vardy's Blue Army, Leicester City. 3-0 winners away at Newcastle, who continue to spiral down the table. And Jamie Vardy now, it is a perfect 10 straight games. Back to back, none of this half a season here, half a season there. It's all been in a row, and he just continues to get better and better and better. Also goals for Alua, and a rather comical third from Shinji Okazaki, who's completely missed his first header. And then managed to bundle in the rebound. Quite an amusing game, that. Gary Monk, he's still in the job, apparently, as at time of recording anyway. His Swansea side came from 2 goals behind at home to Bournemouth to crank out equalisers and take away a point. Very controversial penalty from Andre Ayew in that game. He also scored a beautiful back heel. If you haven't seen that, look it up. It's well worth a look up. And then Tottenham Hotspur, they continue to impress. Much to the panel's chagrin, but they were impressive, it has to be said, in their 4-1 victory at home to West Ham in a slightly tense derby game there. The two sides don't like each other very much. That puts Spurs just 2 points behind their North London rivals. Now they're in 5th place, and they've won 3 of the last 5, and they certainly seem to be impressing people at the moment, and it's hard to disagree with that. And Aston Villa, Remy Gard continues to he must look at this now and think, crikey, what have I got myself into? Villa sit bottom of the Premier League on only 5 points, which is, by the way, the same points that Troyes have got in Liga, and they've been terrible as well. So Villa are in trouble. 4-0 away at Everton, and they really were taken to pieces. Lukaku scoring 2 for Ross Barkley in that game, and Everton, I should say as well, Lukaku getting 2 goals, in that game, not just the one. And it would be fair to say that Everton are an outside bet for a Champions League place. They're up to 7th now. Back to winning ways this week. And in the late game today, we saw an away win for Sunderland, which is as rare as rocking horse poo, but they got a victory tonight, which puts them back up to third bottom now. Really vital winner, Jermaine Defoe goal, getting the points away at Crystal Palace in the 80th minute, just 10 minutes to go. Stole the ball through and beat Scott Down and the goalkeeper after a mix-up. And that gets the points for Sunderland. So as far as the table goes, Leicester City, incredibly, are top of the Premier League. They have won 4 of their last 5. They sit top on 28 points. Manchester United, 27. Manchester City third and 26, level with Arsenal in 4th, also on 26. As we said, Spurs up to 5th on 24. West Ham still flying high in 6th and Everton 7th. Liverpool with that crushing win at Manchester City are up to 9th now. West Brom and Stoke sit 11th and 12th respectively. We mentioned Chelsea still down in 15th, but hopefully for them improving. Newcastle, again, free fall just outside the relegation zone, which currently sees Sunderland, Bournemouth and Villa. So that's the Premier League this week. As far as upcoming fixtures to look out for in the Barclays Premier League, this coming weekend sees Manchester City at home to Southampton in the 3 o'clock game on the Saturday. Aston Villa, they're going to really need to get a win at home to Watford, also a 3 o'clock game. Probably the game of Saturday is Leicester City's game against Manchester United. That's the tea time kickoff, and a massive London derby on Sunday as Tottenham play Chelsea. That's going to be a huge game for both sides at both ends of the table. And Arsenal, they'll look to get back onto winning ways as they go away to Norwich Carrow Road on Sunday afternoon, and Liverpool host Swansea. Questions. Let's go to Drew first. Drew, you got a question on Liverpool?
Yeah, it'll be a 2-part question, but I think one of them will be easy to, for you to answer rather. So there's a stat that came up that may give some insight into what Klopp intends to do at Liverpool. The 10 outfield starters against City ran an average of 2 kilometers more than their City counterparts. So it seems like he's bringing that gegenpress that he brought from Dortmund to Liverpool. But the first thing is, do you think that is a sustainable platform for him to use to charge Liverpool up the table? And B, who do you think the key cog for him will be moving forward this season if he's trying to get Liverpool into a top 4 to 6 finish?
I don't think that I don't think the gegenpress is something they can sustain with this group of players, personally. I've got no proof or statistical analysis to back that up, but a certain Smartessa site will probably be your best port of call to look up for that. But no, I don't think with this group of players it is sustainable. To be honest, I would even question whether it's sustainable for any group of players in Premier League football. It's very, very sort of high paced, high pressure and high talented players you're coming up against week in, week out at all levels of the league. So I'm not sure. My judgment remains unclear on that one. What I would say, key players though, I think Emre Can is going to be vital to what they want to do, playing in his correct position. And also, as with a lot of sides, Liverpool are probably 2 injuries away from being really in trouble as far as their sort of creativity goes. Coutinho divides opinion, but he's very central to what they want to do moving forwards. And I think as far as their midfield, I think Lucas Leiva has become very integral to what they're doing all of a sudden. If they lose one of those two, I think they could be in a spot of bother, personally. Did you have a second part to that, Drew? Or?
No, the B was the
the B was that.
player.
Sorry, my bad. Yeah, no worries. It wraps that up nicely, doesn't it? And Tom, John, you had a question on Sunderland.
Yeah, it was just wanted your opinion on whether I know they won tonight. A bit of a mistake from Scott Dan, who actually normally does very well. I know Palace have actually got a really poor home record, so maybe not surprising that Sunderland did win. But basically, I wanted to know whether you thought Sam Allardyce took over at Sunderland 2 years too late, because they, for me, have been a team who probably should have been relegated for the last 3 seasons, maybe. And as he's the man who normally keeps teams up, as he got in there a little bit too late to finish that job.
Definitely. 110%. Yeah, 110%. I think he was the right manager when it all started to go horribly wrong. Probably just before Martin O'Neill got there, from memory. I think when Ellis Short first came in, he was the manager they needed. I do actually think they'll stay up just because Allardyce has got this record, and I think there's probably 3 teams worse than Sunderland in the division. One, sadly, I think will be Bournemouth. One is Aston Villa, and the other one probably is their rivals or local neighbours Newcastle, who to me just look just wretched. But who knows what may change over the Christmas period. I think they've got enough quality to stay up there, so I'm going to back them to stay up. But yeah, I think Allardyce is the right man for the job. There were signs. I watched the game tonight. It was largely pretty turgid, if I'm honest, but they are showing signs that they can get defensively organised, which is a minor miracle with Yunus Kabul at the centre of their defence. But they played a 3 at the back tonight. It seemed to work. But then it also failed spectacularly at Everton. So they've got to get consistency now. But they do have goals, and that's vital at the bottom end of the table. You're seeing that Aston Villa are struggling and that Bournemouth are struggling without goals. And I think the one thing Sunderland do have is strikers that can score goals in Stephen Fletcher and Jermaine Defoe. So remains to be seen. They've got to build on this now, but I think their next few fixtures away from home are very tricky. I think they've got Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester City in the next 3, but I think they're at home to Watford from memory, and in a couple of weeks' time, and they've also got. Trying to think, I think they've got some winnable games. Is the point I'm trying to make, and they're at home to Stoke next weekend, so that's a massive game as well. So remains to be seen, but yeah, to answer your question, I think 100% Allardyce was the right man.
Yep.
Good stuff. Okay, let's leave the Premier League behind then. We're just going to skip over the best of the rest of Europe. So let's see what's happening for the best of the rest.
A jogada feita o chute pro gol! Gol! Pato! Gol do São Paulo!
Right then, we're going to start with the MLS, or as we're now just going to call it, Chris's MLS Roundup. Seem to be doing MLS every week, but just the 2 quick games to cover. The MLS has reached the playoff semi-final stage. The Columbus Crew, they beat the New York Red Bulls in a somewhat surprising scoreline last night. They won 2-0 at the Columbus, Ohio Stadium. The goals early. There was one, Justin Merrim scored after 11 seconds to put the Crew 1-up, and then New York kind of got into gear and certainly came close to equalising on several occasions. But the goalkeeper Steve Clark making a couple of good saves to keep the Crew in it. And then late on, that man Kai Kamara bagged the 85th minute second goal after some lovely work actually from the substitute. Whose name completely escapes me. That's Cedric. That's the one. He did a little jinking run slalom through 4 players and chipped it to the back post. And despite Robles making a save, Kamara tucked it away. So the second leg is next Sunday. The Red Bulls are going to have to score at least twice to try and get through that game. And in the other game, there was 4 goals. Portland Timbers, they won 3-1 against, I think it's fair to say, most people's favourites for the final, Dallas. Liam Ridgewell, formerly of West Bromwich Albion, he got the opener. Aspria got the second, who actually assisted Ridgewell for the first, I should say. Teixeira pulled one back for Dallas, but Nate Borchers, the man with the wonderful beard, he bagged a goal almost as in a salute to Danny. As he rose to score the third goal in stoppage time, and that third goal could be vital because at 2-1 going back to Dallas, you probably fancy Dallas with the away goal, but the Timbers getting that third goal now, again much like the New York Red Bulls, means that Dallas are going to have to score 2 goals. The one difference is they have got that away goal, so if they do manage to get the 2 goals, then that leaves Portland needing to score themselves. So that'll be a very interesting game. When the return leg comes around, same day on Sunday for Dallas. Just before I come to our panellists, there's one other game I want to touch on, which is in Portugal. The Benfica Sporting conundrum goes on. This is the 3rd time they've met this season. This time it's in the Taça de Portugal, which is the Portuguese Cup. And Juan Jesus, he's got the Indian sign all right. Portugal's sporting club. They notched a 2-1 extra time victory over their massive rivals Benfica. They actually went in front. Benfica. Kostas Mitroglou put them 1-up after 7 minutes, but Adrian Silva equalised 2 minutes into stoppage time at the end of the first half. And that man Slimani, who's banging form, really is, he got the winner on 112 minutes. And yet again, Benfica were left leaving the stadium having won nothing. So, Jesus continues to have the Indian sign. And just a quick update, Sporting are indeed still top of the Portuguese league, and they're 5 points clear of Porto in second. Benfica actually languishing in fourth, on 18 points. So Portuguese league is very entertaining. Let's skip across to John next. John, you've got a quick update for us. Where are you updating us?
Just a quick update on the SPL, the Scottish Premier League. You'll be surprised, I'm sure, to know that Celtic are top, although they are only top by 6 points. Hearts in second on 30, and Aberdeen just behind on 29 points. Dundee bottom on 8, Motherwell and Partick 10th and 11th both on 14. Actually, from the last weekend's games, Celtic actually drew 0-0 with Kilmarnock, so a really good away result for Kilmarnock there. Hearts also drawing with Dundee, so not a bad result for Dundee either. Sadly, Scottish football still suffering from the fact that Celtic don't really have as big a rival, with Rangers being in the is it the Scottish Championship? I can't remember what they've changed the name of the league to now.
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah, they've so they're struggling. I mean, Hearts are certainly giving them a decent run for their money at the moment, but you would still expect Celtic to win the league. But hopefully Hearts and Aberdeen can challenge a little bit.
Good stuff. Keep your eye on that. Also, a nice touch, should mention, the Hamilton-Aberdeen game. Hamilton wore the French national team's away strip for their home game against Aberdeen on Sunday, which is a nice little touch. Yeah, absolutely. And, of course, there was also a story about a certain goalkeeper going walkabouts to the wrong ground. If you're not familiar with that story, just Google Scottish goalkeeper goes to wrong ground. You'll find it. It's quite amusing. Right, Tom, you've got an update for us in Poland, I think I'm right in saying.
I do indeed. We're getting very hipsterish. Yes, the Ekstraklasa. I'll just say before I start this that I'm doing the best Danny impression of pronunciations during this section. So we'll go to the weekend fixtures. And Piast Gliwice, that's probably wrong.
Bless you.
Won 5-3 away at Nichija.
We're going to get so much hate from Polish. We're interviewing someone about Poland soon. He's going to crucify us. Carry on.
I really picked the right league to do, didn't I? Legia Warsaw, I got that one. Won 1-0 against Slash of Wroclaw. And Lech Poznan, who are very much on the up. Stop laughing. Won 2-0 away at Pogoń Szczecin. So we're going to look at the table. In first place, surprisingly, is Piast Gliwice, who are top on 37 points, 12 wins and 3 losses, who interestingly came up from the second division in the Polish league in 2012. The second place is Legia Warsaw, 29 points. Third are Krakow on 27 points, and looking at the bottom, 14th place is Lech Poznan, who actually are known for being one of the better teams in the league, but their involvement in the Europa League and just poor league form has meant that they're all the way down there. But they have won their last they've drawn 1 and won 4 of the last 5. They're sitting on 16 points. Slask Wroclaw are on 14 points in 15th, and at the bottom are Górnik Zabrze on 10 points. Interesting stat on the Polish league in comparison to how it fares in terms of commercial deals. The Premiership gets around £40 million with the Barclays sponsorship. T-Mobile pay £7 million a year to the Ekstraklasa for their sponsorship of the year. So that's how we're looking in financial comparisons between the two leagues. But yeah, that's the Polish league all wrapped up, and I hope I pronounced them perfectly for you.
Good stuff. I'll tell you who'll be throwing his iPod or various other fruit-based devices out the window, and that'll be one of our newer listeners, Ahmed, who's very good at pronunciation. So I'm sure Ahmed will be on our case. Well, on your case, I don't care. But
I hope you said his name right as well, because that would be dreadful.
Absolutely, yeah. Hopefully, crikey, we'll all be for the chop. But if we've got any Polish listeners that want to correct us, then please feel free. Or indeed, if you've got any Polish listeners that want to write any blog for us about the Polish league, please do. We'll welcome you. Drew, Bundesliga, was it Zwei? Would you Bundesliga 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Bundesliga 2. I was trying to be all hipster there. It failed miserably. What's going on in the second tier of Germany?
I'm just gonna run down the scores real quick. Fortuna Düsseldorf drew 1-1 at home against Duisburg. Bochum and Union Berlin also drew 1-1. Sandhausen ran out 3-1 winners against Karlsruhe. 1860 Munich beat St. Pauli 2-0. Which is actually a major upset because St. Pauli is actually sitting third, only 3 points off the top, while 1860 Munich are sitting 16th out of 18th. So not expected there. Racing Ballsport Leipzig won 1-0 at Bielefeld. Freiburg returned to winning ways. They drubbed Paderborn 4-1. I'm sorry, Chris. Former Werder Bremen striker Niels Petersen netted a hat trick, and he now has 14 and 15 appearances this season. Kaiserslautern drew 1-1 against SSV Frankfurt. Heidenheim have now lost 3 of their last 4, and they dropped all 3 points at home against Greuther Fürth. Nuremberg's bid to get back into the top flight was aided by a 2-1 home win against Eintracht Braunschweig. And that's that. Simple. Top 3 is Freiburg and RB Leipzig tied on 29 points, and St. Pauli sitting in third on 26 points, 3 points back. 1860 Munich is in 16th on 13. Same with Fortuna Düsseldorf, who are also on 13, but in 17th for negative goal difference. And Duisburg is sitting in 18th on 8 points. That's it.
So that wasn't that
Good
then.
stuff. And poor old Paderborn under the great Stefan Effenberger languishing just a point above the relegation playoff spot in 15th.
That it 2 points above. Yeah, 2 points above.
Probably more surprising is that Kaiserslautern, who were, I think, pre-season favourites for the title, are 10th. So
they indeed are. Yeah, they've only they lost 3 in a row recently. So yeah, not doing so.
And just to be really hipster, the Bundesliga 3, Dynamo Dresden top, Schloss I believe, are second, and Preußen Münster, which I love that name, they are third. So there you go. That's for all our German listeners. Good stuff. Right, okay, super. Let's move on and leave all things league-wise alone. And we're going to go on to the Hipsters' Choice. Okay, so the Hipsters' Choice this week, we have decided that we weren't giving the goalkeepers enough love. So this week's Hipsters' Choice is indeed a goalkeeper, and it's a British goalkeeper, or English to be specific, and it is Stoke City's Jack Butland. So what I'm going to do is just give you a little bit of brief rundown on Jack Butland, then we'll just come across to our Hipsters just for their thoughts on how he is performing. Now, as we said, we have to be really careful because we know a lot of people, Tom included, are building FIFA teams around the Hipsters' Choice. So we have to try and make these players affordable, as well indeed as being Hipsters' Choices. So
not like Ibra.
No. Well, he was a live pod audition or entrance, so it doesn't really count. You can leave Ibra out of your size, guys. But Jack Butland, I can confirm, is affordable. So what do we know about Butland then? He's 22 years of age. He was born on March the 10th, 1993. He's an English footballer, as we said, who's playing a goal for Stoke City. He also is a full England international. He stands at 6'5", so he's quite a tall lad. Born in Bristol, not far from where I'm based. What do we know about his career? Well, he started with Birmingham City and he made his full Football League debut in September 2011, whilst he was on loan to League Two side at the time, Cheltenham Town. He's established himself as first choice goalkeeper at St Andrews with Birmingham in 2012-13 and was transferred to the Premier League side Stoke in January 2013. That was a fee of 3.3 million. He was immediately loaned back to Birmingham and went on to play every single league match in the 12-13 season. He then spent time on loan at Barnsley before making his Premier League debut in January of 2014. At international level, he's represented the English national team at all age group levels, playing at under-17 team that won the European Championships in 2010, and indeed the under-20s at the FIFA Under-20 2011 side at the World Cup. He was the first choice goalkeeper for Great Britain in the 2012 Summer Olympics, and he became the youngest goalkeeper to play in the senior England national team when he made his debut in August 2012. As you'll probably know, he's the first choice at Stoke City now, and his colleague Shay Given had this to say about Buckland. Jack's got everything you need to be a world-class stopper, said Given. He just needs to keep his head and work hard. A couple of stats for you. This season, Jack Butland in the English Premier League has made more saves than any other goalkeeper. That's 51 saves. And he is only behind Joe Hart, Boas Myhill and Peter Cech with clean sheets. Sorry, not assists. That would be really bizarre. He has 5 shutouts to his name this season. He's currently a client of US boot manufacturers at Nike. They also make his goalkeeping gloves as well. As far as statistics this season, he's played 13 appearances in the Premier League for Stoke. That's a total of 1,170 minutes for those of you keeping count. His pass accuracy is 49.5% according to WhoScored.com. And he's pretty good aerially as well, claiming on average 8 out of 10 crosses, which is a very high ratio. Average rating of 7.2, and he's been man of the match once this season. As far as his club career, we mentioned previously, but spells at Derby, Leeds, Barnsley, Stoke, Birmingham, Cheltenham. That's his career to date. What do you guys make of him then? John, let's come to you first of all. What do you make of Jack Butland?
I've been really impressed with him. There was a lot of talk about him when, as you said, he was at Birmingham. And I must admit, I didn't see a lot of him then, but he got his move to Stoke, and obviously he had a few loan spells out, but he's really grabbed that first team opportunity now, really made the position his own, and he looks a lot very mature for his age. Looks comfortable ordering people about. That Stoke defence is quite experienced. I know they brought in some new players, but Ryan Shawcross is a player who's played for quite a while in the Premier League, and he at times even looks slightly intimidated by Butland, which I think is a really impressive trait, and you need that as a goalkeeper. You look at the stats, and I'm not huge on stats, but when you look at things like, as you said, the amount of clean sheets he's got, and the fact that it's Spurs, Arsenal, Man United, the only 3 teams who have got a better goals against tally than Stoke have this season, and a large part of that is down to Butland. So I think he's got a really long and exciting career ahead of him. The best thing for him is the fact that he didn't fall prey to what a lot of younger English players do and ended up at a huge club and perhaps getting swallowed up and not really getting playing time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if he carries on playing the way he is, he won't be at Stoke forever. Drew, he displaced Asmir Begovic as Stoke's long-term choice, which is a lot of the reason why I think Begovic chose to move on. Coming from a league where there's a lot of good young goalkeepers, Ralph Fairman being one in particular, I think of it's a good comparison. What do you make of Butland, and do you see his future as one of the very best in England?
I really think so. I think it speaks volumes. Stoke aren't a team that are going to pass you off the park by any means, and they're going to give up more chances than they create. So, as John said, the way he himself personally is playing, but I think he does have an experienced defense in front of him. Eric Peters, Philip Bolscheid, Ryan Shawcross, Jeff Cameron, they're all experienced defenders. Glenn Johnson as well. But the way he, as a 22-year-old, marshals that defense, experienced internationals that have years on him, I think that speaks to him as a player, his maturity level, which is very important for a keeper at such a young age. You don't really see that. You can mention someone who we all know well, Wojciech Szczesny, who is only a couple of years older than Butland, but does not have that level of maturity yet, that composure, and that's been often his criticism. But with Butland, he doesn't have that criticism yet. He's very much been their player this season, and like you said, I don't expect him to be there longer. If he's there, he's there for another full season, and then I think he's gone somewhere else.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And Tom, you have the final word on Jack Butland as the man making the team on FIFA. There's obviously a lot of people think that young goalkeepers, or they think that goalkeepers mature at an older age. Would you suggest that Butland, amongst sort of pretty much across Europe, is kind of bucking the trend that you can have a young goalkeeper and still be very successful?
Yeah, I mean, it's credit to him that Stoke decided to sell Begovic and allow him to have the confidence in Butland that they didn't need to bring anyone in necessarily to play first team. I mean, they brought Shay Given in, but he's pretty much the end of his tether, knowing that Butland was there, and he's taken that spot already. And even the comments from Shay Given, as you've said, obviously show promise in the guy. For me, he's been their best player all season. He's pulled off man of the match performances in many games. I was surprised when you said that he's only got one, or been given one rather. Not that we particularly agree with the people who actually disperse these, but certainly he has been their best player. And for a team like Stoke, who are going to have to absorb a lot of pressure in matches and are going to take, as Drew says, and concede a lot of chances, he's vital to that side, and he's really stepping up to the mark. And one person who should really be worried about him is Joe Hart, because he'll be pressing on the international stage very soon.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I personally, personal opinion, I think he's got everything that could be one of Europe's great goalkeepers in time. So we shall see, and we shall certainly see whether he ends up staying at Stoke or indeed moving on. So there you go. Keep an eye on Jack Butland as usual. If you've got anything you want to share with us, particularly if you're in the Stoke area, if you're a Stoke fan, or if you've seen him play live, or anything you want to share with us, drop us a tweet and we will we'll get those looked at and replied to, and of course retweeted. Okay, good stuff. So that's the Hipsters' Choice for this week. If you want to hear who our other Hipsters' Choices have been over the past few weeks, stop being so lazy and download the old podcast. No, I'm joking. You can find those on our website, which we will indeed plug at the end of the podcast. Right, just a couple of things to go then. Let's now turn our attention to this week's Team of the Week. Right then, so Team of the Week. This is where I, your illustrious host, gets to pick through 11 of the best of the week. Hopefully people will agree. We have a little bit of a record. In fact, Tom, do you want to share with our listeners very quickly before I do this week's Team of the Week? We seem to be being spied on by a certain video game maker, don't we?
Yeah, FIFA seem to be nicking our Team of the Week. So we're getting a fair few right, and shall I say fair few right? I mean, they're getting a fair few right. We're getting spot on. I don't have the exact stats, but it was something I'll bring up in a pod next week.
Yes, I think it was something like 6 or 7 of the last 2 or 3 weeks we've managed to pick. So either we're stealing theirs or they're stealing ours, but we get ours out on a Tuesday and they get theirs out on a Wednesday. So we know, don't we? We know. Anyway, I'm pretty sure we'll have a few this week, certainly one of them. So with that being said then, let's get into this week's Team of the Week. So, in goal, we have gone for the... he's been under fire, shall we say. It's the Verona goalkeeper, Raphael. Yes, Verona did lose. That's not really a big surprise, given their current form, in truth. They lost 2-0 at home to Napoli. But towards the end of the game, it was very much the Higuain versus Raphael show. Several saves from the stopper. Despite the result, I think it's fair to say he had a pretty decent game. Right back, we've gone for Darboe. This is the right back for Montpellier. He scored and indeed assisted Yatabare in scoring he scored the third goal in the 3-1 win over Ram. It's not very often that you get full-back scoring goals, which leads us on rather nicely to Messina, who is the left back for Genoa. And he indeed got for Bologna, Genoa. See, they got the same colour shirts. He got the goal in the 2-2 draw against Roma, and generally kept Florenzi pretty quiet, which is not the easiest of things to do, as John will indeed testify. Our centre back pairing is Jason Murillo of Inter Milan, again a goal scorer at the 4-0 win over Frosinone, and he's joined by Chris Smalling, who got the kind of second assist for United's winner and was generally pretty outstanding as they beat Watford by 2-1. Into the midfield, this is a real weird midfield, this one. We've gone with a kind of a 5-man midfield with a lot of forward-based players, so you can play with this however you like. Andres Iniesta would walk into pretty much any side in world football. He was outstanding, scoring and pretty much running the show as Real Madrid crumbled at home to his Barcelona side on Saturday. He's joined by wide forwards Roberto Firmino. He scored a goal and technically got 2 assists, although you can't really class an own goal as an assist, I guess. But playing out of position in a forward role, he was probably the best player on the pitch versus Manchester City for Liverpool, so he gets the starting spot. Alongside, or opposite side I should say, Neymar. Certainly banging form, this guy. Scored a goal, got an assist, and was pretty much unplayable. Luis Suarez will get a lot of the compliments for his performance, but I think it's fair to say Neymar is making the step up as one of the world's greatest footballers in the current era. Certainly has the potential to be so. And as far as our other 2 midfielders / forward midfielders, Max Kruse for Wolfsburg, 2 goals, an assist. Basically was brilliant, just absolutely brilliant versus Werder Bremen, the perfect 10 according to one website, and he of course playing kind of off of a central striking role. They won 6-0, so I think it's fair to say he was banging form, and he has looked a good player since signing there. And he's joined by Janssen, who is the creative genius behind RZ Alkmaar, 2 goals and an assist as well. He was brilliant versus Heerenveen in their 3-1 victory. So he gets in just ahead of Drew's favourite Gustafsson at Feyenoord, just on the strength that he was just a little bit better, but only just.
Sacrilege.
Indeed. And our lone centre forward, again, put these wherever you like, is Javier Hernandez, the former Manchester United Mexican Little P. He's got another 2 goals this weekend. That's now 8 in his last 6 for him, and he completes our lineup as a centre forward. So that's our team of the week this week. As usual, tweet us your thoughts. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And more importantly, EA, stop copying us. Right, so we've just got the one and a half sections to go. Let's now go and turn things over to you, the listeners. It's the Onion Bag. Okay, so the Onion Bag, this is your opportunity to send us your tweets, your questions, and we're going to rattle through these quickly, gentlemen, in the interest of our listeners' time schedules. But the first one I'm going to ask you is one that's come to me by text message, not by tweet. So this is a really personal one. It's from my personal friend and friend of the show, Dan Amador. He wants to know, and I'm going to read his text verbatim. He says, "Let me get this clear from the get-go. I hate Barcelona with every inch of my being from an incredibly young age. My Spanish family have instilled deep-lying mistrust and frankly an unhealthy obsession which has left me as an adult feeling slightly ill every time I see a Barcelona shirt. You'll know from that he's a Real Madrid fan. He was at El Clasico in person on Saturday, and he says, my problem is Andres Iniesta, World Cup winning goal scorer and all that all-round football genius. And what a player. But even for my praise for him, I could really go on about other things he achieved in Spain. But my question to you and the pod is, have you ever had a footballing crush on a player that played for a rival? So I'm just going to ask you all for a name of a player and just a very brief reason as to why. Let's start with Tom.
Okay, so first of all, better say my team of preference in La Liga is Valencia. Always a bit of a liking for them, and I've sort of gone for a player who plays for a rival who we're competing with in terms of position. So I've gone for the Sevilla player Conor Plianka. I'd love the Ukrainian. He's a great creative left-sided player. In that Valencia side, if you put him up with Alcacer and Feghouli, that's so much pace, so much creativity, and a lot of goals, which is something that Valencia much need right now.
Good stuff. Drew, what's yours? We'll come back to Drew because he's roboting like the proverbial Dalek on crack. So we'll come back to Drew. Yes, indeed. You're fuzzing away. John, save us from this.
Oh dear, that sounded terrible. That's like me sometimes. Well, as people I'm sure they know, in Syria, I'm a big Inter Milan fan. So obviously I'd have to pick someone from AC, which is just disgusting. It's terrible. There's a whole list of players that you could pick from some of the amazing players that they've had, especially the team in the 90s. But if I had to pick one, it sounds stupid. It would be Pirlo, despite the fact he was an Inter Milan player. Just because he left at such a young age and then went on and really made his name at Milan. So it would be Pirlo of that era. But there's so many from Milan that they've really had some great players. Honourable mention for, of course, Roberto Baggio.
Oh, there's always room for a Roberto Baggio mention. Absolutely, 100%. I should say as well, very briefly, Team of the Week. I terribly transferred our left back to a different team. He's actually playing for Bologna. That's Messina. So sorry. Just had to correct myself there. See, this is what happens when we're recording live, people. Right, Drew, are you back with us?
Is it better now?
Oh, there he is. Right, who was yours, Drew?
Fantastic. There's a lot, but I'd probably honestly go with Mario Götze for the obvious reasons. He leaves Dortmund, he goes to Bayern. That's that.
Yeah.
I love him as a player. Now he's not even being utilized the way I think he should. So, kind of gets what he gets. But, yeah.
Good stuff. I'm with you. Mine is, it's got to be Zlatan. Don't really think I need to say anything else, really. Just a player I've always wanted at every club I've ever supported, and probably will even when he's old and grey. So there you go, Zlatan.
Can I go back and have Maldini?
You can add him to a collection. I think it's an excellent...
And Nesta.
And Nesta, yeah. It's an excellent question, and thank you very much, Dan, for it. I'm sure people will have their views, and I can hear people talking to their iPods now going, oh, I'd have him and him and him, and it's a brilliant question. So
Kaka. Oh, sorry, I'll shut up.
So many. Right, gentlemen, let's rattle through these questions. Quick, sharpish. First one is for Tom. Tom, Per Svensson wants to know, how good are Barcelona this season? And what he means by that, of course, is how good are they?
Yeah, they're all right.
Good, move on.
No, honestly, what you wanted to know how good they are. Basically, they've showed that they are not Messi Lona. They are Barcelona, and they have a team that can beat anyone, whether they have the best player in the world on that side or not, and they can beat them really, really well. With 3 goals against Real Madrid really showed that. For me, they're on par with Bayern at the moment. I can't put them above Bayern yet because Bayern are just so dominant. The only way that I would be is saying that La Liga is a more competitive league, and Drew's already screaming at the screen when I'm saying that. But honestly, compared to how Bayern dominate that league, they're just the quality throughout Bayern probably tips it over. But certainly you saw what Real Madrid lack is a defensive midfielder, and the defensive midfielder Busquets in Barcelona is the reason why they are so good at the moment.
Yeah, good shout. A question for you, John. This is from Thomas Shelley. Thomas, I'm not ignoring your question on Nice. We kind of covered it in the French roundup. So just so you know, you asked us 2 questions, but I'm going to give your second question to John, which is, are Napoli at a point where they need to win Serie A? And if not, do you think their players will be sold?
It's a good question. I think the short answer is no, because they have enough money at the moment at Napoli that they can afford to keep players. The problem they'll have is bringing in new, younger talent. The squad isn't actually particularly old at the moment, and it looks like Higuain wants to stay there, Insigne as well. Callejon is still talking about staying there, so they should be fine for now, but they're definitely due winning. Maybe not necessarily Serie A, but at least competing really for the title right to the end of the season and winning something other than the Supercoppa, because they certainly underperformed under Benitez, but they're doing really well under Sarri, so expect them to be right up there this season. So maybe they're in with a chance.
Yeah, good stuff. Good question as well. Drew, I'm going to give you this one. This is from Brendan Kane. He says, do you think Leicester and Tottenham are one long-term injury, i.e. Vardy and Kane, away from mid-table?
Yeah, I would think so. I think, though, I think they're about in the same boat. Leicester pretty much, the Vardy Mahrez show. They feed off each other, and they're really the only source of goals. I think between them, they account for over 70% of their goal production. So if Vardy or Mahrez goes down, then they're royally screwed. And same thing with Kane. He's the only one who's scoring at any sort of consistent clip right now for Spurs over between last season and this season. So if he goes down, there's no one really to step in for him. And all Christian Eriksen's creativity is going to be wasted on the rest of that squad. So, I definitely think so.
Good stuff. 2 more quick questions and then one for me. Question for Tom. Tom, Pete Kennelly, thinking out loud here. Pochettino, Real Madrid. Pochettino. I thought I said it wrong for a minute, but no, I was absolutely right. Pochettino, Real Madrid. What do you think?
It's interesting. I mean, he did well at Espanyol in the league. I don't really think he's ready for that big of a step up personally. But I think he's doing well at Tottenham, and he's definitely doing a good job with the recent results that they've been having. It depends if he can really push that Spurs team into top 4. If he can, there's possibilities he could go to an even bigger club. But for me, it's too much of a challenge right now.
Yeah, one to keep an eye on. John, final question for you before I take the last one of the list, and it comes from Davinder. How good is Miralem Pjanic, and would he get into every Premier League starting 11?
Ooh, tough question. Premier League, let me think, every single team. I'm just looking at the league table now, so that's
the answer
yes
you're
for
looking
all of
for
them.
is yes.
I'm trying to find, is there... No, yeah, he does get into every team. He's basically... what's the easiest way to say it? Without blowing... Yeah, okay. He's essentially the best midfielder in the league now, as Pirlo is no longer there.
I think
that's about as high praise as I can give him.
I was going to say that's as high a praise as you can give anyone, isn't it?
No pressure then.
No pressure. I 100% agree with that, by the way. I think he's absolute quality. And one bad game against Ireland doesn't make him average, by the way. Go on.
No, definitely not. considering the rest of the players that are around him.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll take him. Okay, final question aimed at me, so I'll just go through this one for PG, PG_Nez. Is the appointment of Fred Antonetti at Lille a panic decision in anticipation of a relegation battle? A short-term view. Answer to that, PG, is probably. It's a very odd appointment. As we said previously in the French roundup, I thought Christian Gourcuff was a shoo-in since Hervé Renard's removal from Lille, or walkout, or dismissal, whatever you want to call it. Antonetti, it's an odd one. I'd be very intrigued to see what happens. The biggest problem that Lille have got is they have no money. They have 2 star players, which will probably both be sold in January, and they can't score any goals. The 3 of those things combined, you could probably put any manager. You could put Pep down there. I still think they would be pretty damn average. If you want to follow somebody that knows a lot about Lille, look up Andrew Gibney on Twitter. He's a Lille fan. He goes to games. He's a French football expert. He'll tell you everything you need to know. So if you want to know a bit about Antonetti or how he think he'll fit, give him a tweet. I'm sure he will respond to that. But the short answer to your question, PG, is yes, it is, to me, a panic decision, and I don't think it's going to work out well. Time will tell, and of course we'll keep you updated on this here parish. That wraps up the listeners' questions this week. If you've got a question for us, as usual, at the FH Podcast. Normally we put a tweet out before we record on a Monday night, so keep an eye out for that. If you have got any questions that are ahead of time, it's probably best to DM them to us, otherwise they get lost in the shuffle. So drop us a tweet and we'll do our best to answer them for you on next week's show. Okay, one final thing to get to before we leave you in peace, and that is the Hipsters Handshakes. Hipsters Handshakes, as usual, it's your opportunity to get the club kind of adopted. That's the best word for it. You can adopt your club and they go on our website. This week we've got 3. I'm going to mention a couple of these because they weren't mentioned last week, and that was Jimmy R, who wanted the Richmond Kickers. So Jimmy, I promise I will get it done this week. Also, Puebla FC goes to Aldrian CG. He also mentioned it in our live pod last week. I promise I will get them put in. Akib also wanted to claim Southampton. Akib, I will get that done for you as well. And the most recent one was Janzeb Shaheen, and he wants to claim St. Pauli. And yes, Janzeb, your wish is our command. We shall give you St. Pauli. If you want a Hipsters Handshake, again, just tweet us. Send in the team that you want represented. We'll put the badge on our website and your name alongside it, so you can find out who's following similar teams to you, or indeed if you are most hipster of them all. So that was the Football Hipsters podcast for this week. All that remains to be said from me, as always, is keep your beard strong and your glasses trendy. We shall return on Thursday, myself and John, possibly someone else as well, depending on commitments, for the Satchel edition. That is where we wrap up all of the Champions League and Europa League midweek action. So do keep your eyes peeled on Friday for another podcast to drop, a little bit shorter, a little bit more punchier. We'll give you all the information you need from this week's European games. But all that remains to be said for me is to thank my panel. So thank you very much to Tom.
No worries.
Thank you very much to Drew.
Hey, thanks very much, guys.
And thank you very much to John.
Before I go, I've almost realised I haven't said Florenzi's name. I feel better now.
Oh, very good. Had to be done, didn't it? Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it as always. Keep tweeting us, keep bombarding us, and if you haven't already, give our very first posted blog a read. So thanks very much for listening, and we will speak to you soon. Thanks for downloading and choosing the Football Hipsters podcast. Remember, you can follow us at the FH Podcast on Twitter, or our website www.footballhipsterspodcast.co.uk. You can also follow us on Twitter individually at AFCFreddy8 for me, Chris, or for Danny it's at @the_GFP. For John it's at JWelsh84. For Tom it's at TCanton94. For Drew, it's at AFCBVB1410. For Jake, it's at JakeArsenal1. For our producer Gaz, it's at GazMadJones. And for our researcher Kelly, it's at Kelly_Mayor. We'll speak to you next week.